Good evening, everybody. We are here tonight to go over how to organize your family first aid kit and to learn how to use parts of it. So this is what the kit looks like when it comes to you, and it's filled with stuff to the brim, organized in absolutely no fashion whatsoever. And for it to be useful for you, you need to be able to organize it in a way you know what to grab and when. So the first thing you want to do is we're going to go in order of the different, you want to get a couple of plastic bags, like 11, and you want to label these. And they're going to be labeled hemorrhage, lacerations, final bandages, orthopedics, which means broken bones, sprains, strains, dislocations, burns, eyes, shock, biohazard, which is where you put your trash that's been contaminated, personal protective gear, which is PPE, that you'll put in one of the end pockets, and your tools, which also will go in an end pocket. And then we have some disinfectants. And the reason that we came up with this list is because we looked at the incidence of trauma that occurs after an earthquake. And this bag was designed basically to be for emergencies that may occur during an earthquake when we don't have first responders. Most common injuries are lacerations, they're cuts, bleeding. The second most common is orthopedic injuries. So we have a heavy focus on that. Burns can occur during earthquakes, and now we're in wildfire season, so they can occur then. The difference is during an earthquake, you may have to stay. During a fire, you just want to get out. Eyes can get injured from debris, from things flying through the air. And then shock, there's not much to treat there that we have, but it's important to know about it. Disinfectants, and then we've got tools and emergency preparedness, personal protective gear. So you should have your Sharpie out by now and be labeling 11 plastic bags. So first we're going to talk about hemorrhage, which means severe bleeding that's life-threatening bleeding. As those of you know from taking the CERT training, there are three things that are the killers. One is a lost airway, and second, and most importantly, where you can make a difference, is in bleeding. And so our first bag, what you're going to want to do, and the contents of what's in each bag is listed on this sheet that will be available to you, is to make a bag that says bleeding. This will contain sterile bandages, sterile dressings that you can apply to the site of bleeding. There's several of those. It will include Curlex, which is a stretchy gauze that you can use to create a pressure bandage. You will want to put an entire pack, 200 of non-sterile, meaning that they're not okay to touch the wound, but they're okay to pile on top to make a pressure bandage. You'll have 6 sterile bandages. These you have to open carefully, as we learned at CERT, so that you never touch the inside of this package nor the gauze. And there are different sizes of the cling dressing. So these are going to be your primary. There's an avalanche going on here, sorry folks. These will be your primary things to use to treat a hemorrhage. Coban is an elastic adhesive bandage that you can use to wrap tightly around something that's bleeding. Once you've gotten direct pressure to stop the bleeding to a flow, you can put this on. The second thing is a bag you're going to label lacerations. Lacerations are cuts, abrasions, anytime there's a break in the skin, maybe bleeding or not bleeding. And in this bag, you're going to put a big pile of non-sterile 4x4s. You'll have various size of gauze bandages that you can wrap around the wound. There will be one of the big combine pads. I don't know if you can see, but the thickness of this is much greater than it is of a sterile gauze. So this absorbs much more blood if that's what needs to be done. You will have, again, sterile 4x4s. These are what you apply against the wound itself. And then we also have these things called Steri strips. There are 6 of them. There are 2 packs of them. These can be cut. They're sterile, and you can use them if you have a gaping wound. You apply to one side of the wound, you tighten it, pull to the other side, and that will pull the edges of the skin together, and that will help with wound healing. You also want to have something to irrigate the wound with. And what we have in here is purified water. This is sterile. You can squirt this under pressure by applying a lot of pressure to the wound to get out whatever debris or whatever particles may be in there that could cause an infection. If you don't have this, you can just use water straight out of the hose if that's what you have to do. But a wound should be irrigated carefully. And again, another one of these gauze things. So at the end of that, after you've dressed the wound, which is dressing is what is in contact with the wound, then you want to bandage it. And bandaging it means you apply you apply bandages over top of the dressing. Hold it.
What about helping an iPhone that fell down?
Okay, hold it in, please. Okay. And bandages include things like just a box of Band-Aids, of which you have a variety in here. There is Coban in here, which is that adhesive elastic that will help hold the bandage in place over the dressing. And you also have 2 different kinds of tape in here to help hold things together. So that basically covers what you need to do and what categories you want to have of things. When you place these in your bag, you want to place them so that the one for hemorrhage is the first one you're going to come to, because that is the most serious problem that someone may be having. Second would come lacerations. Third would come the final dressings. So other injuries you may encounter are orthopedic injuries, which are like broken bones, could be sprained ankles, strains, dislocations where a joint is way out of place. And in this pack that you're going to label Ortho, or you can label it Bones if you want, we have several things. One is this very versatile thing called a SAM splint. This you can cut, you can make it conform to the wound, to the broken area. If it's a broken arm, let's say, you want to put it above and below where the bone is broken. You can use 2 of these if you need to, if it's a leg and it's a big bone. You hold that in place with ACE wraps, or they call them elastic bandages. We also have, if you need some pressure on a broken bone area, if there's perhaps a laceration as well, a cut, you can use the adhesive elastic bandage. One of the important things in any kind of orthopedic injury is immobilizing it above and below the joint, elevating it, and applying cold to it, which decreases the amount of swelling, therefore decreases the amount of pain. So you've got these little packs in here that are instant cold packs. You can use those on the area. Triangular bandages you can use to secure somebody's injured limb in place. They have clothespins in them, or safety pins in them to help hold them in place as well. These are very useful. You can actually even use these for pressure bandages if need be. So those are our orthopedic items. And what I'm doing now is what quite often doesn't happen. When you take things out of a pack, it is very easy to not restock them. And it's important that if you use stuff out of your kit, that you make a note to yourself, and when the emergency is over, that you replace things in their proper place. Can't replace the ones on the floor, but whatever. Another thing that can happen during any kind of earthquake or during fires, for that matter, is people can get burned. We have a bag here, you label it burns. Important things about burns are they need to be cooled quickly. So we have solution in here that you can squirt on the burned area that will help to cool down the burn, will clear away any debris that may be in it. And it's more important probably than any other place that you use a sterile bandage in contact with the burn. Burns are your defense, skin is your defense to getting infected. So anytime you get a burn, it's important that you maintain some sort of shield so bacteria cannot get inside of the burn and cause infection. In here, there are a couple of things called burn shields that are very useful to apply to a burned area, and this is really all you need to put on them. They come in 2 different sizes. There's a large one. You come with a package of 5 smaller ones. If something's a superficial burn, meaning it's not like a 3rd-degree burn or a 2nd-degree burn, you can try using the burn shield spray. This is effective at reducing the pain from a burn. And the other really important thing is for anybody who's gotten burned, particularly if it's a large area, they cool off very quickly, because when the skin doesn't keep your liquid inside of your body, because it's gone now, you start to evaporate the liquid in your body, and evaporation causes cooling. So these patients will cool down very quickly, and they can get very sick just from hypothermia. So it's important to keep them warm. If you use these Mylar blankets, one should go underneath of them. Another one should go on top of them, because you lose a lot of, they're on the ground and they're resting on the ground, they lose a lot of heat through the ground as well as just through evaporation of their skin. So these are the things we have in the burn bag. So the next one is eyes. There's a lot of stuff that can be flying around in the air that can get into people's eyes, cause corneal abrasions. They can be very painful. They need to be treated right away. We have 2 containers in here of eye solution that you can use to irrigate the eyes. And then if somebody, let's say, has a corneal abrasion, you irrigate some things out and you see that there are things in there and they're still complaining they've got eye pain, you can use this oval eye pad. You apply it to the eye, and then you use transport tape, taping it from here to hold it in place. If the eye remains shut because it's against this, it will keep them from having pain. It also will allow the cornea to start to heal. And we label a bag shock. As you know from CERT, from learning about the 3 killers, one is shock. Somebody goes into a condition where they no longer are maintaining their blood pressure. It can be from multiple causes, including cardiac shock. It can be from loss of blood volume. And occasionally it can be from somebody in a diabetic state. So we do have a glucose gel in here that you can use to treat someone who may have an extra low sugar. And obviously if it's bleeding, you stop the bleeding. That's the major treatment. The other thing is these patients get cold very, very fast. So we've got Mylar blankets in our shock bag. And then there are a variety of disinfectants, and we put those in a separate container. If you're treating somebody's cut, let's say, and you're using the tweezers that we'll see in a second to pull the 2 sides of the wound together, it's very important that you don't use those again on somebody else without disinfecting them. And betadine is what you use to do that. If you don't need the whole bottle of it, we have these little swabs you can use. These are okay to, if somebody has road rash, you can use these to clean the edges of the skin. It's not something that you want to put on open fleshy tissue. You don't want to put it inside of just a clean cut because this kills tissue. And then we also have Povidone. We also have alcohol wipes in here that you can use to clean off skin edges. And we also have some sting relief wipes, which if somebody gets a bee sting or something like that and it's just hurting a lot, you can use these. And we have also 10 packages of individually wrapped triple antibiotics. One thing you need to know though is that you should always ask the patient beforehand if they're allergic to anything, because some of the ingredients in here they may be allergic to. So you don't want to use these. Never ever use these on burns. Don't put anything on a burn. You can use this on an open cut of some kind. It's particularly useful if somebody has road rash, if they fell off their bike during an earthquake and they've got a bunch of gravel in their knee or something. This would be a useful thing to put on. And then, last but not least, we've got 2 end compartments here. And one you should label tools, and one you should label PPE, which is personal protective equipment. So for tools, what comes in your kit are a pair of splinter forceps. These are great for pulling gravel out of something, pulling a piece of glass out of something. Again, you need to sterilize these between uses on patients. There is we'll get into this in a minute, but there's a tourniquet in here. It's kind of Mickey Mouse, so I would replace it with something else, and I'll tell you what in a second. There is a seatbelt cutter in case someone is trapped in a car and you need to get them out. There are bandage scissors, which are useful because you can use them applying the flat edge against the skin, and you can cut without damaging the tissue underneath. And then there's a pair of forceps or hemostats. And these are very handy if you need to if you want to get sterile dressings out of the package. You can pick them up with this, one side, and then directly apply it down without touching the wound with these. You can pull things out of wounds with these, so they're very, very useful. And the last thing, and probably the most important thing, is the very first thing you should ever reach for if you're involved in an emergency situation is your personal protective gear. And you will put that in one pocket at the end, so it's easy to grab without contaminating the rest of the field. If you come upon somebody who's bleeding out from, let's say, their femoral artery and your hands are bloody, you don't want to contaminate your entire bag. This way, you can grab a pair of gloves, put them on, and then go ahead about going into your supplies for taking care of someone. You always have to assume, particularly if it's a mass casualty thing, or if there are multiple victims from a bus that goes over, something like that, just assume you're going to need your protective personal gear. So you want to put your goggles on, you want to have your gloves on at all times, and you want to have a mask. I would say this is not the world's greatest mask. So we'll go into that in just a second. So these go in one pocket, these go in the other. And now I'm going to share with you a few things that I've added to my kit. In terms of tools, the tourniquet that you're given here is really hard to use. It's kind of Mickey Mouse. It's not going to do the job. You need a real tourniquet if you're going to be effective. One thing you can do is take the Stop the Bleed course. I think I don't know how much it costs to take it, but anyway, the bag that they give you has some special stuff in it that will cause a wound to coagulate. So you can stuff this into a wound that's bleeding, and this will help with coagulation or clotting. It also contains a combat tourniquet, which looks like this. And it also contains another tourniquet that's called a SWAT tourniquet. It comes in a little itty bitty package like this, and this is what it looks like. And this thing is incredibly useful because you can apply it to yourself. You can just stick one end in your mouth and then wrap it around your extremity or wherever the bleeding is coming from. And it tells you how to assess when it's tight enough by the change from a diamond to a square, or from a diamond to an extended diamond. So you know when you've gotten this tight enough, and then you just tuck the end in. It also can be very useful as a pressure bandage. If you've been holding pressure, the bleeding seems to have stopped, and you need to bandage this thing up and move on to another patient, you can use this to apply a lot of pressure to that bandage to keep the pressure on the wound so it doesn't start to rebleed. So this I would absolutely recommend. The combat tourniquet is now the standard of care in the military. It's now becoming the standard of care in civilian life and mass casualties, like the Las Vegas shooting when there were multiple victims that were bleeding out from wounds. I would say these two should be in your bag, or one of these two, and you put them so it's the first thing you can reach. If you see somebody bleeding and they're bleeding out and you're worried about it, just grab this. Don't wait and try pressure and all that sort of stuff. And that's becoming the standard of care now. Other things that I put in my toolbox are in terms of masks. So there are two different kinds there are a bunch of different kinds of masks, but there are two that are effective against. One is this protects you and protects other people from you. It's an N95 mask. Ideally, the ones that are the most protective go around the back of your head, but they're a real pain in the neck to wear. So this is adequate. And you can buy them in the 50s, I think this pack came in. They're not very expensive. The other thing, if you're working, let's say there's a fire and you're helping out, this is a mask, it's an N95 mask. It's used by construction workers or people working with a lot of particulate matter. This has a valve in it, so it keeps stuff from coming into you, but it doesn't prevent you from breathing out easily. So this is a much more comfortable thing to wear if you're going to be in a situation where you're doing strenuous things trying to help people. You will at least be able to breathe. It is not protective for other people against COVID or any kind of other viral particle, but it's certainly worth having at least one of each of these in your PPE. The other thing you really want to have is a headlamp. This one was pretty cheap. It's rechargeable. It has a whole bunch of different settings. And the advantage of this is if you're trying to do, oops, sorry, didn't mean to shine it in your eyes. If you're trying to do something, most things you do with your hands to help someone in an emergency require both hands. If you have to hold a flashlight up to see something, you're going to be very ineffective. So this allows you to be much more effective. And also, if it's dark, you can wear this and protect yourself, not be falling over unseen obstacles. So I highly recommend you put one of these in your bag. Another toy that I find really handy is, I forget what these are called, Letterman or something? Leatherman. It's got pliers, it's got a knife, it's got a screwdriver. It's easy to use, easy to pack, relatively lightweight. It's an easy addition to your toolkit. And lastly, well, two things. Lastly, I have not tried this, but I read about it and I'm gonna try it. This is a combination of a gauze plus pressure bandage. It's all in one. It's, I forget how much I paid for it, $5 or something maybe. And you can use this as effectively as you can any of these things for a pressure dressing if somebody's bleeding out. So I will try this out and let you know how it works. And lastly, one thing I have in my book, and it sounds in my pack, is this book by Eric Weiss, who's a doc, who was the head of Stanford ER for a long time, does multiple courses in wilderness medicine. And many of the techniques in here for taking care of things are the same thing that you would do if we don't have first responders in a major emergency. So it's worth taking a gander at this, and if you're ever in doubt and you come across somebody who's got a dislocated shoulder, this will tell you what you should do. So it's worth having this, I think, in your backpack. And that's the family first aid kit. Oh, you want to do this too? So following along in the same sequence, this is what we have in all of our medical trailers. And this is modeled after the family first aid kit in terms of the severity of emergencies. So when we put things in here, first thing we do is we've got a box that is for bleeding, and it has multiple of the same thing you saw in the plastic bag. Then we have another one that, this is the one that's final dressings. There's another box that's for ortho that has all the things we talked about in the orthopedics case. We're missing our box on laceration, which is why it's good to review all your stuff periodically. Burns and eyes are in one box. And here's a box for wound cleansing. Our PPE is in the front of this case, as well as the tools. So basically, these are the same things. Other additions that you may want to make to your tools are things like an O2 sat monitor. It was particularly important during COVID because people's sats would drop even when they seem perfectly normal. You may want to add an automatic blood pressure cuff, which we have in here. We've got headlights in here. So this is pretty much everything you need in terms of PPE and in terms of emergency tools to use. And if you have any questions, just email me. I'm happy to answer them. If you need help arranging it, I'm happy to do that too. We do teach a lot of this stuff in the CERT course. If you want to sign up for CERT, you can get some basic first aid training in that, and you get a practice session. And thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, please let me know.